When I was 19, I came home from my night class to find our house empty. Not, we moved a few things? Empty. Empty. The living room rug was gone. The TV stand, gone. The photo frames that used to line the hallway? Empty hooks and faint rectangles on the paint. Even the shower curtain in the bathroom was missing. At first, I thought maybe we were moving, and no one had told me the schedule. It wouldn't have been the first time my parents made decisions without including me. But then I saw the kitchen. The table was bare. No mail pile, no keys, no half-finished grocery list in my mother's handwriting. Just one thing, a single torn page from a spiral notebook, weighted down with the salt shaker. I picked it up with shaking fingers. 5 words. You're old enough now, you'll figure it out. No. Love, Mom, and Dad. No explanation, no address, no phone number, just that. I stood in my own kitchen, still wearing my backpack, and read it again and again, as if more words might appear if I stared hard enough. You're old enough now, you'll figure it out. That was the night I realized my family had moved 3 states away, without telling me. They took my parents' wedding china, the couch, my sister's trophies, the ugly lamp my dad always said he hated. They left me the overdue bills, the rent notice, and a note. Growing up, people thought my family was strict. That was the polite word. We didn't do sleepovers. We didn't talk about feelings. We didn't ask for help. If I got an A, my dad said, "That's what you're supposed to do." If I got a B, he called me lazy. If I was quiet, my mom asked what was wrong with me. If I cried, she said I was making a scene. When I was 13, I baked her a birthday cake from a box mix. It leaned a little to one side, and the frosting was lumpy, but it was the first thing I'd ever baked alone. She took one bite, grimaced, and said, "It's dry." Then she tossed it in the trash and told me to clean up the mess. When I was 15, I tutored my little brother in math for weeks. He passed his exam. My parents took him out for ice cream to celebrate his hard work. They told me to stay home and watch the dishes. When I was 17, I got my first job as a cashier at the grocery store down the road. My dad demanded half my paycheck to teach me responsibility. When I questioned why it was always half, never less, he said, "You live under my roof, you follow my rules." I learned early that in my house, I was useful, but not loved. So when I walked into that empty house at 19, part of me was shocked. The other part wasn't surprised at all. The next day the landlord came by. "Laura," he said when I opened the door, "where are your folks?" "Gone," I said. The word felt strange in my mouth. "I think they moved." He rubbed his forehead and sighed. "They called last week," he said. "Said they were ending the lease. I told them they needed 30 days' notice. They said they'd be out sooner." He looked over my shoulder into the bare living room. "They didn't mention leaving you." Of course they hadn't. He gave me 30 days. That was more kindness than my own parents had given me. 30 days to come up with rent I didn't have, or find somewhere else to go. I had $62 in my bank account, no savings, no car in my name, no family nearby. I called every friend I could think of. Most of them lived with parents who were shocked and sympathetic for a few minutes on the phone, then said things like, "We'd love to help, but we just don't have the space," or, "Your parents must have had their reasons." One mom asked, "What did you do to make them that mad?" That was the day I stopped telling the full story. Within 2 weeks, the couches ran out. The guest rooms were needed for out-of-town relatives. The sympathy dried up. And the 30 days ran out. That's how I ended up sleeping in my car for the first time. It was a 2004 Honda with a cracked dashboard and a window that wouldn't quite close all the way, no matter how hard you rolled it up. I parked in the far corner of the grocery store lot where I worked, pretending I was just too tired to drive home. Only there was no home to drive to. I spread my jacket over myself and tried to ignore the way the cold air seeped in through the gap in the window. I tried not to think about how easy it would be for someone to walk up and yank the door open. I didn't sleep much. The next morning, I went inside early and accidentally clocked in 20 minutes before my shift. At least if I was on the clock, I didn't have to think. For weeks, my life became a rotation at campus library by day, pretending to study between classes, the gym locker room for a hot shower that I always took too long, the 24-hour laundromat when I needed a warm place to sit at night, the front seat of my Honda hugging my backpack like a shield. I brushed my teeth in public bathroom sinks. I washed my uniform in the laundromat late at night and prayed no one would steal it out of the dryer. I ate peanut butter out of the jar and bananas that were one day away from the trash bin because they were 50% off. I kept going to class, kept working my shifts, kept nodding and smiling and saying, "I'm fine, just tired," whenever anyone asked. And the only people who saw through the act were strangers. One night, the janitor at school found me asleep on a couch in the student lounge. He nudged my shoulder. "Hey, kid, building's closing," he said. Then he noticed my packed backpack and the way I flinched when he touched me. He hesitated, then set a wrapped sandwich on the table. "You forgot your lunch," he said, even though it wasn't mine. A librarian forgot to wake me when I passed out at a desk with my head on my textbook. A bus driver waved me past when I realized, halfway up the steps, that my bus card was empty. "Just get on," he said quietly. "You can pay next time." My parents were nowhere, but the world kept handing me tiny lifelines from people who didn't know a single detail of my story. They just recognized the look of someone trying very hard not to fall apart. The person who finally said the words I needed to hear was Mrs. Patterson. She was my biology professor, late 50s, always wore mismatched earrings, and carried a mug that said "Science is real" in chipped blue letters. She was also observant in a way that made you feel both exposed and cared for. I was always the last one to leave her class, partly because I asked questions, mostly because I had nowhere else to go. One afternoon, as I lingered, pretending to write something down, she said, "Laura, could you stay for a minute?" Panic shot through me. Had I failed an exam? Was she going to tell me to stop camping in the back row? I walked up to her desk, bracing myself. She looked at me for a long moment. Not at my grades, not at my notes, at my face. "Who's watching out for you?" she asked gently. I opened my mouth to lie. "I'm fine," I started. She tilted her head. "That's not what I asked." Something cracked. I didn't plan to tell her everything. In my head, I saw myself giving a calm, edited version. Things are complicated at home. My parents moved, I'm figuring it out. Instead, the words came out like floodwater. I told her about the empty house, the note, the landlord, the car, the peanut butter dinners, the nights in the laundromat. By the time I finished, my chest hurt, my eyes were swollen, and my voice was hoarse. She didn't interrupt, didn't say I was exaggerating, didn't rush to tell me how some people have it worse. She just listened. When I finally ran out of words, she slid a box of tissues toward me and said, "All right, first we're getting you out of that car. Then we'll figure out the rest." Within a week, she'd walked me down to the student support office herself. With her standing behind me, suddenly the woman at the desk was a lot more interested in my situation. They found a spare bed in emergency student housing. It wasn't fancy, shared room, thin mattress, weird-smelling hallway, but it was warm and safe. Mrs. Patterson also called in a favor with a colleague and got me a part-time job in the biology lab. It paid just above minimum wage. I spent a lot of time rinsing beakers and labeling boxes of expired pipette tips. But it came with two things I hadn't had in months: predictable hours and adults who checked in on me. Every Monday after class, she'd ask, "How's the housing? How's the job? Are you eating real food yet?" She started sending me home with leftovers from faculty gatherings. "Too much hummus," she'd say, shoving a container into my hands. "Do something about it." She became the closest thing to a mother I'd ever had, not because she tried to make up for my real one, but because she did the simple, radical thing of treating me like I mattered. Having a bed under a roof changes your brain. For months, my mind had been in survival mode. Every thought was about the next 12 hours. Where to park, where to eat, where to shower. In the dorm, with a door that locked and a bed I didn't have to deflate in the morning, my thoughts started stretching. Past tonight, past this week, into something that looked suspiciously like a future. With Mrs. Patterson's encouragement, I cut back my grocery store hours and focused on school. I finished the semester, then the next one, then another. I worked in the lab. I learned how to calibrate equipment and log samples and not be afraid of expensive machines. I learned, slowly, how to trust that if I slept, the bed would still be there in the morning. At 21, I got a small scholarship and a paid internship at a medical supply company. I almost didn't apply. The job description looked too grown up, too for other people. Mrs. Patterson sat me down and made me submit the application in her office. "They're going to be lucky to have you," she said when I hovered over the send button. I didn't believe her, not yet, but I clicked send. I got the internship. The company was nothing like the chaos I'd grown up in. They had rules and schedules and meetings that started on time. At first, it felt like visiting another planet. On my first day, my supervisor, a woman named Naomi, handed me a thick binder. "This is our product line, our procedures, our everything," she said. "Read it, highlight it, write all over it. And if you don't understand something, ask." I took the binder home and read it cover to cover in 2 days. No one had ever given me that much information and expected me to use it. Most of my work was boring. Data entry, inventory checks, labeling boxes. But I also sat in on meetings about new designs. I listened to engineers talk about how a change in plastic might make a device safer. I watched how Naomi managed a room, calm, clear, firm. For the first time, I saw adults making decisions from a place that wasn't pure panic. I started to imagine myself as one of them. At 24, when my internship ended, they offered me a full-time position. "Are you sure?" I asked Naomi. "There are other interns who—" She cut me off. "We're sure," she said. "You work hard, you learn fast, and you don't crumble when things go sideways. That's valuable." I said yes. At 28, I became project lead on a device that eventually rolled out to hospitals across the state. Seeing something I had helped design in the hands of nurses who actually used it felt surreal. At 31, after years of saving and living like a student even when I didn't have to, I signed the papers on my first home. It wasn't the kind of house you see in movies. The floors tilted a little. The paint was chipped. The kitchen cabinets were older than I was. But it had 3 things that mattered more to me than granite countertops ever could. My name on the deed, a front door that locked, and a small front porch that I painted bright blue because I wanted to see color when I came home at night. For the first time in my life, I had a place no one could suddenly take away from me. My parents were still gone. I hadn't heard from them in over a decade. Sometimes, late at night, I would search for them on social media. I found my dad's profile once. A photo of him at a barbecue, a beer in his hand, a caption about family time. My name wasn't anywhere. I closed the page and told myself it didn't matter. I told myself I was fine. But the truth was, every success in my life carried a quiet question underneath. Would they care if they knew? The answer came in a way I didn't expect. It started with an email. The subject line was simple. "We'd like to talk." For a second, I thought it was spam. Then I saw the sender, my mother's name. My heart hammered against my ribs as I clicked it open. "We heard you bought a house," she wrote. "We're proud of you. Maybe we could reconnect. Life is short." No mention of the note, no mention of the car, no mention of leaving me alone with $62 and an empty lease. Just, "We're proud of you," and "Life is short," like we'd simply lost touch. I stared at that email for a long time. A part of me, the 19-year-old who went to bed hungry, wanted to write back immediately, to ask why, to demand answers, to scream. Another part of me wanted to delete it and pretend I'd never seen it. Instead, I closed my laptop and went to work. I told no one for a week. Then my brother messaged me. "Mom and Dad are struggling," he wrote. "They could use your help. You're doing well now. Can't you step up?" There it was. Not love, not remorse, not "we're sorry." Need. The same need they'd always had, for what I could provide, not who I was. I stared at the blinking cursor in the reply box. Then I typed 6 words. "Why did you leave me behind?" He answered within an hour. "You were the strong one," he wrote. "You didn't need us anymore." I felt the air leave my lungs. It was the story they'd built to live with themselves. They hadn't abandoned a teenager. They'd trusted a strong young adult to figure it out. As if it had been an act of faith. As if the nights in the car, the bruises from sleeping against a seatbelt, the fear of every knock on the window had simply been a challenge I was ready for. Whatever sympathy I had left shriveled. Eventually, my mother asked to meet. "We just want to talk," she wrote. "Face to face, like a family." Those last 3 words did something to me. Like a family? I agreed, but only on my terms. A crowded cafe near my office, middle of the day, a table near the door. When I walked in, I saw them immediately. Time had not been gentle. My father's hair, once thick and dark, was thinning and gray. My mother's posture had collapsed inward, like she was trying to take up less space. They both stood up as I approached. My father spread his arms for a hug. I stopped just out of reach. "Hi," I said. We sat. For a while no one spoke. Up close I could see the lines etched into their faces. The world had worn on them. Illness, money, whatever storms they'd walked into after leaving me behind. A small, cruel part of me thought, good. Then my mother started to cry. "We made mistakes," she said between sniffles. "We were under a lot of stress back then. We lost the house. We lost everything. We didn't know how to handle it." I listened. She talked about bills and foreclosure and arguments and fear. She did not talk about the note on the table. My father cleared his throat. "We always believed you'd land on your feet," he said. "You were always so independent. We thought you didn't need us as much as your brother did." He said it like a compliment, like abandoning your child is reasonable if you believe they're strong. I felt something inside me go very, very still. "No," I said quietly. "You thought I wouldn't die. That's not the same as not needing you." They blinked. My mother reached across the table, hand outstretched. "We want our family back," she said. "We're getting older. Your father's health isn't good. We don't want to die without making this right." There it was again. Need. Not for my forgiveness, for my presence, my time, my emotional labor, my future caretaking. I thought about all the nights I'd wished for this moment, all the hypothetical conversations I'd had in my head where they arrived on my doorstep, tearful and apologetic, saying, "We were wrong. We are so sorry. Let us try to make it up to you." This wasn't that. This was them trying to buy their way out of guilt with my stability. "I'm not here to comfort you," I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice sounded. "I'm not here to fix how you feel about what you did." My father frowned. "You're still angry," he said. "After all these years?" "Yes," I said. "I'm angry and sad and tired, and I'm also done." "Ungrateful," he snapped. "We gave you everything for 19 years. I laughed once, sharply. "You gave me a bed and food," I said. "That's the bare minimum required by law. That's not a favor I have to repay. And then you took it all away with a note." We went back and forth a few more times. They blamed stress. They blamed circumstances. They blamed the economy. They never truly blamed themselves. Finally, I picked up my bag. "This is the only conversation you get," I said. "Do not show up at my house. Do not send me guilt emails. Do not use my brother as a messenger. If you want to feel better about what you did, talk to a priest or a therapist. I'm not your solution." My mother cried harder. My father's face turned red. "You'll regret this one day," he said. I looked at him and realized for the first time that I didn't recognize the man who shared my DNA. "I've regretted things because of you my whole life," I said. "This won't be one of them." Then I walked out. Walking away did not feel like victory. It felt like a funeral, not for them, for the version of me who waited in that car at 19, hoping every set of headlights that passed was them turning around. For the girl who thought if she got one more A, worked one more shift, smiled a little wider, she'd finally be enough to stay. In the months after that cafe meeting, the grief came in waves. Some nights I missed them so much it was hard to breathe, not the real them, but the parents I wished I'd had. Other days, I felt nothing at all, just a quiet blank where their names used to be. What filled that blank slowly were other people. Mrs. Patterson, who still sends me a Christmas card every year addressed to my favorite almost daughter. Coworkers who show up at my door with takeout when I've had a brutal shift. Neighbors who notice when my porch light is burned out and bring me extra bulbs. My best friend's kids who call me Auntie and draw me pictures of my bright blue house with flowers that look like lollipops. They will never share my blood. They share something better, my present. Last Thanksgiving, my little house was chaos in the best way. 12 people squeezed around my too small table. We had mismatched plates and folding chairs borrowed from 3 different neighbors. Kids ran laps through the living room. The dog barked every time someone opened the fridge, and the smoke alarm went off once when the sweet potatoes bubbled over. It was loud and imperfect and real. At one point, someone bumped the table and almost sent the gravy boat flying. Another friend laughed so hard at a joke she snorted wine out of her nose. I stepped into the hallway for a moment just to watch. There was Carla, scolding her son gently for sneaking extra rolls. There was my neighbor, telling a story with her hands. There was an empty chair with a sweater thrown over the back, waiting for a friend who always ran late. My little blue house, the one I had painted because I needed something in my life to look like hope, was full of warmth and noise and people who were there because they wanted to be. No one was pretending everything was perfect. No one was walking on eggshells. No one was waiting to be abandoned. I thought about that note on the kitchen counter all those years ago. You're old enough now. You'll figure it out. They meant it as a dismissal, as a way to tell themselves that leaving me was reasonable. But they were accidentally right about one thing. I did figure it out. Not the way they meant. Not by toughening up until I didn't feel anything. Not by turning into them. I figured out that I am not defined by what they did. I am defined by what I built afterward. People sometimes ask me if I'll ever make peace with my parents. Usually what they mean is, will you ever let them back in? Here's the truth. I have made peace with myself. I've made peace with the girl who slept in a car in a grocery store parking lot, with the student who cried in a professor's office, with the young woman who worked herself half to death because rest felt dangerous. I don't know if I'll ever see my parents again. Maybe they'll send another email. Maybe they won't. If they do, it won't be addressed to the scared 19-year-old they left behind. It will be sent to a woman who survived them, a woman who knows now that family is not defined by who shares your blood, but by who actually shows up. If you've been left behind, by parents, by a partner, by anyone who was supposed to stay, I won't tell you it's easy. It's not. It hurts in ways that are hard to describe. It changes the way you see yourself in the world. It leaves scars. But it does not have to be the end of your story. You can sleep in a car at 19 and sit at the head of your own table years later. You can be discarded and still become someone who treats others with care. You can grow up in a house that never felt like home and still build a life full of rooms where people are safe to be themselves. At 19, I walked into an empty house and found a note that said, "You're old enough now. You'll figure it out." Standing in my own kitchen now, stirring a pot on my old stove while my friends argue about which movie to watch, kids yelling, "Is dessert ready yet?" Someone yelling from the living room, "Where are the extra forks?" I realized something. I did, and whether they ever know it or not, that's enough.